public. So for those of you that have tattoos, don't worry, I'm not gonna leave you hanging. There are a few spots in Tokyo that are cool with tattoos. I have a full list on my website, so I'll be sure to leave a link in the description of the video so you can check it out for yourself later. Alright, Wi-Fi and internet in Japan. Now this is actually one of the things that a lot of people ask me questions about in the comment section, and it's actually one of the most things that always concerns me when I go overseas. So what you need to know is that all of the major cities like Tokyo have relatively fast internet in Japan. I even stayed at a capsule hotel in Tokyo and their Wi-Fi was super fast. I think this should be enough for most people. Nicer hotels outside of the city should have Wi-Fi, but maybe at a slower speed. But if you're anything like me and need to be connected all the time, then there are some local options. Number one, Starbucks. On the free route, luckily Starbucks provides Wi-Fi to all its customers, and there are so many Starbucks all throughout Japan. But I found that the speeds are fast or slow depending on the amount of customers on the network. You can try other cafes, but it's hit and miss. Number two, city Wi-Fi. Another free alternative is to use the city Wi-Fi. This is only available at the major stations or areas like Shibuya, Shinjuku, Harajuku, Odaiba, etc. Connecting is fairly easy. I'll leave a link to all this information in the description. Now, if you need to be connected, I'm going to need to go the paid route. So the first paid option is to rent a portable hotspot Wi-Fi and carry it around with you. Now, I think it's the easiest thing to just go to the airport and rent one out there. Another option is to get a SIM card for your unlocked mobile device. You can go to any major electronics store and they should carry it. Again, check the description for more details. Smoking in Japan. Check this out. It says no smoking area here, but right next to me, there's a smoking section. Smoking in Japan may catch a lot of you off guard, especially if you're coming from the US. But if you smoke, then you're in luck because Japan has some of the most friendly laws for smokers. But that may be changing in the near future, which I'll tell you about just a little bit later. First of all, many izakayas, which are sit-down restaurants designed for drinking, allow their customers to smoke throughout the entire restaurant and don't usually provide non-smoking sections. If you want to go to an izakaya, simply put, you're going to have to deal with a secondhand smoke. Nicer restaurants may prohibit smoking, but some of them still accommodate their smoking customers. So if you want to eat at that kind of establishment, you should really ask before you make reservations. Some family restaurants and other establishments do attempt to divide smokers and non-smokers, but sometimes you'll find that there's nothing really separating a smoking table and a non-smoking table, other than maybe a tiny vent. And one of the biggest surprises I had when first living in Tokyo is that smoking inside is actually allowed while smoking outside is prohibited. It didn't make sense to me at first, but when you consider how busy the streets are in Tokyo, the last thing you want is someone bumping into you with their cigarette butt. The city, though, wanting to accommodate smokers, had set up smoking areas throughout the city so those smokers who need their nicotine fix can do it safely on the street. Isn't that a great idea? But to the non-smokers out there, you might be pleased to hear that they passed a law that make it more strict to smoke cigarette. If they want to have a smoking section, to have it separate from the non-smoking section, otherwise they can't have a smoking section at all. Riding the train in Japan. Now if you guys have seen any videos on Japan, you've probably seen these crazy attendants pushing people on the train, and let me tell you that the struggle is real and it really happens, especially during rush hour. Try to avoid riding major city commuter trains during the weekday between 8 to 9:30 in the mornings, 5:30 to 7:30 in the evenings, and the weekday during rush hour. Try to avoid riding major city commuter trains during the weekday between 8 to 9:30 in the mornings, 5:30 to 7:30 in the evenings, and the last train, which is usually around midnight, and the trains reek of alcohol. Peaks may vary from train line to train line, but this and the trains reek of alcohol. Peaks may vary from train line to train line, but this should give you a rough idea of when to avoid the trains. Also, what a lot of travelers don't know is that usually the first or last cart of the train on weekday mornings are reserved for women only. This is because Japan has a huge problem with men groping women on trains, especially when they're packed on the train like marshmallows in a game of Chubby Bunny. Look for the pink signs on the cart, which also indicate the women only time. In this case, mornings are reserved for women only. This is because Japan has a huge problem with men groping women on trains, especially when they're packed on the train like marshmallows in a game of Chubby Bunny. Look for the pink signs on the cart, which also indicate the women only time. In this case, 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. So we're at a restaurant right now, and one of the things that I absolutely love about Japan is the non-tipping culture. So what I mean about that is if you go to a restaurant or if you take a taxi, you never have to pay a tip. The price on the bill is the actual price you pay, and it's one of the things that I deeply appreciate. You save so much time not having to calculate the tip, and the service here is almost every time pretty good. At the same time, there's one thing you guys need to know is that there's hidden fees in some of the restaurants. It's called a toshidai, or in English, you need to know is that there's hidden fees in some of the restaurants. It's called a toshidai. One thing you guys need to know is that there's hidden fees in some of the restaurants. It's called a toshidai, or in English, the table charge. Prices vary from place to place, but ranges from 300 yen to the upper end of 1,000 yen per person at nicer places. You'll actually be able to spot it right away. When you sit down at the table before ordering drinks or food, the waiter will bring you a small dish. Once you see the small dish, then you know there's going to be a table charge. It's very Japanese in a way. They'll make you pay for a table charge, but they'll actually give you something in return. General rule is if it's a fast food place, ramen shop, or restaurant serving set lunch courses, then you don't have to worry about the table charge. Otherwise, expect a table charge. But you really need to be careful of the sneaky izakayas that make you order a certain number of dishes as well as charge you a table charge. They're usually the ones advertising in front of the stores for a ridiculously cheap amount of money, like 1,000 yen, all you can eat, all you can drink, or something like that. Even places like this advertise 500 yen pizzas will have a table charge, and they'll make you also order one drink. So no matter what, you are paying at least 1,000 yen to eat at the place. I know it's not much to some of you, but I still think it's a bit sneaky. Let's talk about hotel fees in Japan. And if you guys have looked and searched for
Want to pass your certification exams first time? At Exam Labs, we've got you covered.
hotel rates, you might have found that it's quite expensive to some of you, but I still think it's a bit sneaky. Let's talk about hotel fees in Japan. And if you guys have looked and searched for hotel rates, you might have found that it's quite expensive, but what you may not know initially is that more often than not, hotels in Japan charge per person instead of per room. So I could see having a minor add-on charge for an additional person staying at the room, but doubling the rate for an additional person seems a bit excessive to me. I don't know about you guys, it may really depend on the country you're coming from. But I'm from the US and we really don't have rooms doubling in rate when you have two people versus one. The only time this makes sense to me is when you go to a Japanese ryokan or onsen hotel and they include dinner and breakfast as part of the room rate. In this case, an additional dinner and breakfast would need to be prepared for that extra person, hence doubling the overall cost. Anyway, so I don't see Japan changing their business practice anytime soon, so it may be affordable to look at other services like Airbnb for couples and families, or for singles you might want to check out capsules or youth hostels. And number 10, cooperate with the police. Wow, this has been like such a hot and long day trying to film this. I'm so glad you made it through, so let's just start. This may actually be a no-brainer, especially if you're coming from a foreign country. But what you might not understand is the laws are very different here in Japan and how the police interpret those laws. So whatever rights you think you have, you might want to put that on hold when you come to Japan. One of those rights is your right to privacy. Police here in Japan have the rights to stop you, check your ID, and ask you questions just if they think you look suspicious. It might sound ridiculous, but that's just how it is in Japan. And if you don't cooperate, there's a high chance that they can detain you and hold you in the police box, like the one behind me right here. In fact, I've been stopped a few times throughout my 15 years in Japan, and talking with my other friends who live in Tokyo, they've been stopped as well. If you guys have any experience with the police in Japan, let me know in the comment section. So the moral of the story is, if you get stopped by the police, just cooperate with them if you don't want to get held up for any longer, even if you didn't do anything wrong. And always carry your ID, or at least a copy of it. Oh, and if they do ask to search your pockets, yes, it's actually not legal for them to check it. And if they do ask to search your pockets, yes, it's actually not legal for them to check it. But if you don't allow them to search your pockets, again, they might treat you as suspicious and hold you in the police box. So if you guys don't want any trouble, just cooperate with the police. I know it sounds a bit strange, but it'll save you a lot of time in the long run. Alright, so that concludes my top 10 things I wish I knew before coming to Japan. Please remember that these are generalizations and not all Japanese are like this. There's always exceptions to the rule. And despite all these cultural differences, I still love living in Japan. In fact, I feel safer living in Japan than any country I've ever visited, which is like a pretty cool thing. So when visiting Japan or visiting any other country, we should always be respectful of the culture. If you found this video helpful, help me out and hit that like.
Так вот, вернемся к веб-дизайну. Это работа Насти, а это работа Миши. Это работа Виктории, а это Ильдара. Это все мои студенты. Они начали свой путь с бесплатного курса «Веб-дизайнер. Взрывной старт». А ты говоришь, невозможно. 6 занятий с проверкой домашних заданий и личным наставником. Более 200 тысяч человек прошли этот курс, и сегодня пишут мне в директ вот такие вот сообщения. Основы UI и UX, прототипирование, адаптивный веб-дизайн и выход на фриланс. Все это ждет тебя на взрывном старте. Время пришло.
Ну нет, а что ты предлагаешь, смотри, ты такой типа как бы, нет, я уже это, склоняю взгляд, понял я. Я имею в виду, какое предложение конструктивное, типа такой, да. Приоритайз. Вот и приоритайз, да. Приоритайз.
In this video, I'm going to share with you the must-do things before you fly to Japan. So I've already done a video of what to do when you arrive in Japan, especially when you get to the airport. But in this video, I wanted to focus on what you need to do before even getting on the plane. So what a lot of people don't know about coming to Japan is that it's very much a reservation-based culture, meaning that if you want to go to some of the higher class places, or if you want to go to some like high-end restaurants, or some very, very popular spots here in Tokyo or throughout Japan, you have to make reservations. In fact, some of the things that we'll be talking about in this video, it's so difficult to get in that you have to book months in advance. And by the time you've arrived in Japan, it's already too late. So I want to share this information with you so when you get to Japan, you don't have that oh no moment where you're like, I really wanted to go here, but I can't. Also, what you'll find is if you do a little bit of prep work, you can save some money. So that's another advantage of planning ahead and doing all these things before you fly to Japan. Overall, the whole point of this video is to help all of you out so you can maximize your time here in Japan. But before I start, like always, if you want to help support the channel, check out the Tokyo merch. If you want to see what I'm doing on the daily, check out my Instagram account. And if you have questions about your upcoming trip to Japan, or you want to connect with people who love Japan, then I've recently created a Discord community for you to connect. Links are always in the description. And finally, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Mobile SIM Cards. Without them, I couldn't make all of these videos for all of you. In fact, my first tip before coming to Japan is organizing a SIM card. Having a SIM card overseas makes life so much easier. I'm able to connect to all of my social media, I'm able to connect to all of my emails, as well as just be able to navigate throughout the entire country. What's nice about Mobile is that they offer free shipping all throughout the world, and once you've ordered it, it'll come within a few days so that when you land in Japan, you'll have your SIM card ready to go. And for those of you who are watching this video just before your trip, you can actually make same-day orders and pick it up when you arrive in Japan. Mobile has free pickup spots at the airport, as well as free pickup spots in cities all throughout Japan, making it super convenient. I'll tell you a little bit more about Mobile later on in this video, but for now, let's move on to some more things that you need to do before flying to Japan. Well, there just seems to be too many cars here, so I'm going to move to a quieter spot. Alright, that's a lot better. Less cars, less noise. Alright, so let's continue this video. Number 2, Michelin and high-end restaurants. So what you'll find with a lot of these Michelin high-end restaurants is that the seats book up really quickly because a lot of these restaurants only have maybe 10 to 12 seats available. And the fact that they're already popular means that they get booked out 3 to 6 months in advance. So just be very, very careful. My first recommendation in all of this is just to kind of know which of the high-end restaurants, Michelin restaurants that you want to go to. And then once you know, then have a look on their website, on their Facebook page, and check to see whether or not you can make reservations in advance and to see what the reservation wait is like. But what you'll find is some of these restaurants don't accept online reservations, they only accept phone reservations. And even worse, some of the really old school restaurants only accept reservations from regulars. So many of these restaurants no longer accept booking directly from foreign travelers because they've experienced too many no-shows by travelers. But what I wanted to share with you in this video is there's kind of workarounds around this. So the first thing you can do before you come to Japan is contact your hotel concierge, because a lot of the times, although they won't accept reservations from people overseas, some of the restaurants will accept reservations from your hotel concierge. So give them a call and see if they can make a reservation for you. And then the second thing, if that's not possible, there's actually online websites that will let you make reservations. But if you do decide to use one of these online reservation systems, be aware that you're going to have to use a credit card to make the booking. The two most travel-friendly websites are Pocket Concierge and TableCheck. They're very similar in what they do, but what I found is that TableCheck is a bit easier to use in terms of the calendar. There's more request options like what type of room you want and that kind of sort of thing. And 3, the booking is secured right away so that you know you have the seats. But with websites like Pocket Concierge, you need to apply for the booking with payment, and then later you'll receive a confirmation whether or not you actually got the reservation. The thing is, not all the high class and like Michelin restaurants are listed on these websites, so you might want to check a couple of them, especially the old school ones. They're probably not going to be listed. And finally, one of the last workarounds to getting into these high-end restaurants is to actually use your guide. If you're having a private tour and you've scheduled a private tour guide here in Japan, they can actually make the calls for you, and since usually they're Japanese or they're local, it's easier to make those reservations through them. And if you're looking for a private tour guide in Tokyo, I actually have a friend that does it, so I'll leave a link in the description. Next is hotel reservations. This one might be pretty obvious. Yes, before you come to Japan, you need to make hotel reservations. These days, a lot of people use Agoda, Expedia, or Booking.com to make those reservations. Those sites are great, especially for English speakers, but if you want more local websites, you can use websites like Rakuten Travel or Jaran. They have better deals and more options, especially when it comes to food options at the hotel. But something to note about these websites, especially when you're making reservations for like hotels, onsens, ryokans outside of like major cities like Tokyo, is that a lot of them are sometimes just on Japanese websites, and a lot of them offer more deals on the Japanese websites. In fact, a lot of these onsens and ryokans frequented by Japanese people, but you'll find is that you need to make reservations even more advanced compared to booking your hotel in the city. In fact, a lot of the higher end ones will get booked up quicker. Now let's talk about the JR Pass. So for those of you who don't know, the JR Pass is basically an all-you-can-use, unlimited ride train pass for JR trains locally, as well as the Shinkansen bullet trains that go all throughout Japan. So this is kind of a must, especially for travelers who are looking to travel quite a lot throughout Japan and not just stay, say for example in Tokyo. You'll get so much more of a discount if you use it wisely. A lot of Japanese people wish they could have, but the JR Pass is only for travelers. So definitely you should look into this if you're going to be doing a lot of traveling. You can purchase 3 different durations. You can get a 7-day, a 14-day, and a 21-day pass, and then you can get a regular car or you can get a green car pass. The green car pass allows you to get into nicer seats. You should really consider ordering this before you get to Japan. A lot of countries have designated places where you can buy the JR Pass, and it's not to say that you can't buy the JR Pass here in Japan, but you will save 10 to 20% if you buy it ahead of time. So definitely if you want to save that 10-20%, buy it beforehand. But there looks like to be some uncertified websites that you can buy the JR Pass in advance. The reason I say it's uncertified is because it's not actually listed on the JR website. I'm not saying that these websites won't actually work, but just be careful when you're buying them from these online websites. Before buying these is to make sure that you're eligible and that you meet the requirements, because even though you buy the passes, you might not be able to collect the passes, or you might not be able to use the passes if you don't meet the requirements or you're not eligible. Oh, and something worth mentioning about the JR Pass is that you can not only use them on trains, but you can also use them on buses and ferries. Exceptions do apply, so definitely check the website to make sure that you can use it for that specific location and area. Also, when riding the Shinkansen on the JR Pass, you can ride unreserved seats, but if you want to ride reserved seats, you will need to go to the ticket booth in advance to reserve before you ride. Also, if you're flying in or out of Narita Airport and taking the Narita Express, you can use the JR Pass to ride it and save 6,000 yen round trip, which is about $55 US. So quickly, I wanted to talk a little bit more about mobile SIM cards and all of the cool things that they have to offer. Mobile SIM cards are suitable for short and long-term stays. Basically, all plans come with unlimited data. As a standard, you get 7 gigabytes of data at 4G LTE speeds, super fast. But if you do need more data, then you can definitely upgrade to one of the larger plans. And if you need, you can get a real Japanese phone number, which makes it super convenient if you need to call people here in Japan, or if you need people to call you. After ordering the card online, it'll come in a package like this. You open it up like so. So this is the actual SIM card that they send to you. As you can see, it's a SoftBank card. In fact, it's on the same mobile network that I use on a daily basis, which covers 99% of Japan's population, so you know you'll be covered just like me. Also, mobile offers English language support, and best of all, mobile guarantees that a majority of the profits go to charity. So if you want to get your mobile SIM, best of all, mobile guarantees that a majority of the profits go to charity. So if you want to get your mobile SIM card and be connected when you arrive here in Japan, check out the link in the description. Now let's talk about reservations for Disney. So what you'll find with the restaurants at Disneyland and Disney Sea is that it's really difficult and extremely hard to get in if you don't have reservations, especially the higher end restaurants. The good thing though is all the restaurants can be booked on the Disney website. So if you want to have dinner at a nice restaurant in Disney, you should definitely book ahead. I mean, just to give you an example, Michael and I have been to Disney Sea so many times. Our favorite restaurant is Magellan, and every time we go there, try to book a few days in advance, and it's all booked up, and like the only seats we can get are like for really odd times. Maybe like at 4 p.m. we have like an early dinner. If you're okay with 4 p.m. that's fine, but if you want to have dinner at say like 6 or 7 p.m. then definitely make a booking in advance. Also, something to note about the Disney resorts is that the hotels at Disneyland and Disney Sea get booked up, especially like the Ambassador Hotel in Miracosta. Those get booked up at least like 1 month in advance, so be careful if you want to stay there. The good thing compared to restaurants is that they have up to 5 months advance booking, so you do have time. And another personal story, Michael and I have tried to stay at the Miracosta with a parkside view. Have time. And another personal story, Michael and I have tried to stay at the Miracosta with a parkside view. We try to book 1 week in advance, and the rooms are all booked, or they're just super insanely expensive expensive, like several times the cost of the normal hotel if you book a few months in advance. So we like end up not doing it because we're like, oh, we'll just book it a few months in advance next time, and we never do it. So that's kind of another reason why I wanted to share the Disney experience with you, because if you are excited to come to Japan and check out the Disney resort, you're going to want to make all of these reservations way in advance, and I don't want you guys stuck not getting to actually experience Disney here in Japan or having to pay through the roof to get that Disney experience. Just plan ahead. Finally, if you want to get
Welcome to Python is Easy, your path to becoming a Pythoneer or Pythonista. Variables, functions, statements, lists, loops, sets, dictionaries, I/O, classes, libraries, error handling, and
Disney tickets. You don't actually need to buy them in advance, but if you do buy the tickets in advance, you are able to skip the lines at entrance and just like scan your ticket. So, and in fact, if you want more tips about Disneyland and Disney Sea, I've actually made a complete video on that for tips and hacks. So check out that video. I'll leave a link in the description. Next, let's talk about visas. Now this one is probably a no-brainer. Before coming to any country, you want to make sure you have the proper visa to get in. So
Так что деньги можешь присылать. Сопротивляться не будет, потому что не можешь присылать сколько.
So, if you're currently a citizen of one of the 68 countries listed here, then you're granted a general visa exemption, and you only need to show a valid passport to enter Japan as a temporary visitor, which allows you up to a 90-day visit, except if you're from Brunei and Indonesia, which gets 15 days, or United Arab Emirates for 30 days. But if you're not from any of these countries, then you're going to need to formally apply for a visa. It may vary per country, so definitely check on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs website. You may need to prepare items like photos, birth certificates, invitation letters, and guarantor documents, which takes time, so be prepared. Now let's talk about special events. So for sports-related events like sumo or baseball, you definitely need to check the season schedule because it doesn't go all throughout the year, but it has its own season. And what you'll find is that earlier in the season, tickets are easier to get, but as you go through towards the end of the season, then the tickets are harder and harder to get. So let me go through sumo. So sumo seasons are a bit different than your typical sports. They run in tournament form 6 times a year called basho in various locations in Japan. Here's the 2020 schedule and the 2021 schedule for reference. Basically, there are 3 tiers of seats: ringside, box seats, and balcony seats. Ringside being the most difficult to obtain. There's also juseki, which are free seating tickets, but they're not available for pre-sales and they sell out quickly from 8 a.m. on each day of the sumo tournament. So I wouldn't rely on those tickets if you want a guarantee of viewing. So you can purchase tickets directly online in English on the official sumo site, but be warned, they too sell out quickly at times, so you should mark the dates when the tickets go on sale. So let's go through baseball. Baseball is quite popular in Japan, so tickets can be hard to get sometimes, so definitely plan ahead. You can simply go to the team's website, for example the Tokyo Giants, which is also in English. Just so you know, better seats, more popular teams, and the end of the season will make it more difficult to get tickets. So again, plan ahead. But let me go through concerts. Concerts, it really depends on who's performing on how advanced you need to buy the tickets. The Japanese people usually buy their tickets online on a site called Ticketpia. The site is in Japanese, but fortunately they also have their site available in English. Again, all of this information is listed in the description. And here are some other things that you should probably be aware of. If you're going to one of the team lab museums like Borderless, or you're going to Cup Noodles Museum, you can usually get tickets while you're here in Japan, but if you have a short stay, then sometimes it's actually best to book 1 week in advance and make reservations. What you'll find is that weekends get really booked, and if you're only staying here for a few days and you're arriving on Friday, it may be too late. So that's just something else to consider when coming to Japan, something that you should make reservations for before coming here. Oh, and I should also probably mention this: medicines and prescription drugs. First of all, this one we need to be a bit careful. I should note that I'm not a lawyer and I'm not providing you with legal advice in this video. You definitely need to check the laws in Japan before you bring in medicines from outside of the country. Many common medications and over-the-counter drugs in countries like the United States are legal in Japan. It doesn't matter if you have a valid US prescription for a medicine or drug which is illegal in Japan. If you bring it into Japan, you risk being arrested or detained by Japanese authorities. So you're going to need to check with the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare whether or not your prescription medicine is okay to bring into Japan. For example, all medications containing stimulants are prohibited. This includes Adderall, a standard medication used to treat ADHD symptoms in the US. You can bring prescription medicines into Japan with you without any special procedures on the condition that 1. You bring it only for your own use, 2. It's not any prohibited drugs such as methamphetamine in Japan, 3. It's not any especially controlled drugs such as narcotics in Japan, and 4. Its quantity is up to 1 month's supply. So if you have exceptions to this rule or you need to bring special medicines, you'll have to apply for a so-called yakkan shomei, an importation certificate, and receive it before you leave home, and then declare it to the customs officer when you arrive in Japan. This process can take several weeks depending on your country and requirements, so plan ahead. Aside from that, if you guys like this video, help me out as always by hitting that like button, and if you guys want to help support the channel, check out the Tokyo merch. And if you guys want to see what I'm doing on the daily, check out my Instagram account. Also, thank you again to our sponsor, Mobile SIM Cards. If you're really coming to Japan and you want to be connected just like me, definitely think about getting a plan from Mobile. And finally, if you want to see more guides about Japan, day in the life videos, definitely hit that subscribe button and the bell button, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Настройки фотоаппарата вызывают у вас тихий ужас? Кажется, что вам никогда это не освоить? Если тема не про вас, можете просто закрыть это видео. А если хотите научиться снимать в ручном режиме, делать классные фотографии при любом свете и на любой объектив, то регистрируйтесь на мой бесплатный мастер-класс.
In this video, I'm going to share with you my tips and hacks to get around Japan. So a lot of you might think that the only way to get around Japan is taking trains or cars, but there's just so many different options and there's so many different tips and hacks that I definitely needed to share with all of you. So many things I've learned along the way living here in Japan. But before I start, if you guys want to help support the channel, then check out the Japan merch. And if you want to see what I'm doing on the daily, check out my Instagram account. And if you have any questions about Japan or your Japan travels, then check out my Discord community. The links so will be in the description. Finally, before I start, I gotta pay for Michael's new shoes. I wanted to say thank you to our sponsor, Luggage-Free Travel, which brings me to our first tip of the video. So one of the biggest issues I have, especially when traveling, is carrying around a lot of luggage. Especially in Japan, when you take a lot of trains to get where you're going, you have to haul all that luggage with you. And if you have a big family, or if you just have a lot of baggage, you have a lot of souvenirs you bought along the way, it just makes it super difficult to travel with all of that luggage. So a service like Luggage-Free Travel is the perfect solution. You can use it right when you arrive in Japan from the airport and ship your stuff directly to your hotel, and you can use it from hotel to hotel. So if you're traveling in Tokyo or outside of Tokyo, this Luggage-Free Travel is just super convenient. Sending luggage is super easy. All you need to do is go to the Luggage-Free Travel website and schedule a drop-off from an airport or hotel in Japan. You'll receive a QR code and then simply show the QR code at the luggage counter of your specified drop-off spot. If you don't speak Japanese, no worries. They have multiple language support, and then a few quick taps and you're luggage-free. When you pick up your luggage, say at the next hotel, simply show your receipt or confirmation number at the luggage counter. The counter will get your luggage, and then you're good to go. Easy like miso soup in the morning. So what's also convenient is if you're in the Kanto area, you can get same-day delivery. So for example, if you ship out your luggage before 10 a.m. in the morning, you'll get it the same day between 6 and 9 p.m. And if you ship out your luggage from your hotel before 4 p.m., it'll arrive the next day from 2 to 6 p.m. So if you guys are interested in this luggage-free travel, then check out the link in the description. And if you guys use the coupon code PALO, you get an extra 20% off. That all said, let's move on to my next tip. Now let's talk about trains. Now if you've seen my other videos, you know I've already done a video on Shinkansen trains and just riding trains in general here in Japan. But in this video, I wanted to talk about the JR Pass, which probably a lot of you will be considering. So if you're coming to Japan and you're just staying in Tokyo, then you don't really need a JR Pass. In fact, all you really need is an IC card like a Suica or a Pasmo, which I've covered in some previous videos, so I'll definitely leave links to that if you're interested. But if you're planning to travel throughout Japan, then JR Pass is probably the most convenient and cost-effective method of traveling. So for those of you who are not familiar, JR Pass is a pass that allows you to ride all the trains all throughout Japan. It comes in several different packages. You can get a 7-day, a 14-day, and a 21-day. And also it comes in 2 different levels. You can get an ordinary pass or you can get a green pass, which allows you to have the nicer seats in the Shinkansen trains. And if you look at the chart, you can see there's quite a difference in price. So be very selective when choosing, especially considering how long you're going to be in Japan and what type of seats you want when riding the train. And here's how the green seats looks like. And you can tell there's a little bit of a difference. The green seats are a little nicer. They're kind of more like a business or a first class seat. There's a lot more space, but something to consider is that the ordinary seats actually get booked up a lot quicker than the green seats, so you might want to consider that when planning a lot of your travel. But you don't really need to worry, because if you get the ordinary seats, then you can always upgrade later at the ticket counter if you need to. So in general, if you're going to be traveling all throughout Japan and you're going to be making multiple stops, then definitely JR Pass is something to consider. But if you're only going to take one trip from Tokyo to Osaka and back, then maybe JR Pass is not the way to go. So let me show you the cost from Tokyo to Shin Osaka. So if you're taking the Hikari Shinkansen, it's going to take about 14,400 yen to get there one way. That's 20,800 yen round trip. While using JR Pass, 7-day ordinary ticket costs just under 30,000 yen. So the costs are very similar. So if you take multiple trips within those 7 days, then JR Pass is definitely worth it. So for example, if you're going from Tokyo to Osaka to then Kyoto, you've already paid for your 7-day ordinary pass. In fact, there's several websites out there where you can actually calculate whether or not JR Pass is going to be worth it, depending on where you're going. I'll leave a link in the description so you guys can check that out. But there is something to consider when taking the JR Pass. You don't have access to the fastest Shinkansen trains, but that's not that big of a deal. So for example, if you're going from Tokyo to Shin Osaka, there's 3 different types of speeds. You have Nozomi, Hikari, and Kodama. Nozomi being the fastest, but you don't have access to that. So here's the time from Tokyo to Shin Osaka. You can see that there's a little bit of a difference in time, but you be the judge to see whether or not it's worth it for you. So finally, a lot of people that get the pass ask me, can I use this in Tokyo? Quick and short answer is yes, but you can use it only on JR lines. So a lot of the JR lines run throughout Tokyo, but it doesn't work on the metro. You can actually use it for the Narita Express because it's run by JR.
Подумай, сколько времени ты проводишь на ютубе? Можешь ли ты выделить всего 2 часа в день не на просмотр роликов, а на...
So if you're arriving at Narita Airport and you're going into Tokyo, then definitely you can use the JR Pass. Oh, and one final note, you can use the JR Pass on buses and ferries, but you're definitely going to need to look on the website to see if it's available for the location that you're traveling to. But personally for the JR Pass, for me, I would definitely get it because it's rates that you would never get as a local. I can't even get the JR Pass, so if I was a traveler, I would get it. I would probably stick to the ordinary pass because I don't really need to use the green seats. The seats are nicer, but I don't think it's worth paying the premium for it. And if I do want to upgrade and I want to get a nicer seats, then I can just pay for it at that time. So we're back in the airport and now it's time to talk about LCC flights, also known as low-cost carrier flights. If you're trying to save money on your travel in Japan, then this is actually a very, very valid way to travel. So in fact, Japan has a lot of different LCC flights available. They have Skymark, Solocene Air, Jetstar, Peach Aviation, Vanilla Air, AirAsia, and Spring Japan. There's so many carriers. So basically, if you're trying to just go to one spot, like if you're going from Tokyo to Osaka, it probably makes sense in terms of cost-wise to take an LCC flight. But if you're going to multiple locations, then the JR Pass may be a better choice. It really depends on your travel plans, so I recommend to do a bit of research to save yourself some time and money. So let me quickly compare the cost from Tokyo to Osaka one way. So taking the Shinkansen at Nozomi is about 14,000 yen, while if you take an LCC like Jetstar and you go by their lowest rates on Monday, you can actually get a ticket for 5,830 yen. That's 8,890 yen cheaper. Even if you include transportation from Tokyo to Narita Airport, that's about 15 to 3,000 yen, so it's still cheaper. So if you are looking to travel and want to save some money, then definitely look into the different LCCs. So let me show you how easy it is to get on an LCC. So if you're flying from Narita, most of the LCCs fly out of Terminal 3. There are exceptions, so check beforehand. You'll need to walk or get on a bus at Terminal 2. I usually walk as it only takes about 10 to 12 minutes. Terminal 3 is small, but it does have a convenience store, drugstore, and a food court just before the security gates. There are a few shops and kiosks after the gates, but if you're gonna eat, I recommend eating at the food court as it has the most options. LCCs are cheap, so expect minimum service, no full meals, and standard seating. The flights though do have some limited snacks on board, but since the flights are short, I recommend saving your money and eating before or after the flight. So a lot of Japanese actually prefer to take LCC flights because it is cheaper, but personally for me, I kind of like riding the Shinkansen, so I prefer paying a little bit more to ride the Shinkansen, and I don't actually like all of the travel from train, then getting on a flight, and then back on the train to go wherever I'm going. I'd rather just be on the train the entire time. But it's usually personal preference, and some people want to fly. So definitely consider LCC flights if you want to save some money and you just want to go a different route. Let's move on to the next tip. Let's talk about overnight buses. Now, to be honest with you, I don't take overnight buses so much these days just because I prefer taking the Shinkansen. It's a lot faster. But for those of you who have actually a lot more time than money, then this is a very viable way to travel. One being, it's a lot cheaper, and two, you actually save on hotel costs because the time you're traveling at a lot more time than money, then this is a very viable way to travel. One being, it's a lot cheaper, and two, you actually save on hotel costs because the time you're traveling at night, you don't have to pay for a hotel night. So first of all, when taking an overnight bus, there's several different levels you can take. You can take the really, really inexpensive route. The buses are not as nice. You could probably get from Tokyo to Shinosaka for several thousand yen. But there are some luxury style buses that I'm going to show you right now. So we're about to board the night bus right now, and this is actually kind of a waiting room. You can see they have an information desk, they have some vending machines, you can buy some souvenirs, they even have some computers over there where you can get on the internet, and it's just kind of like a lounge area before you get on. It's actually quite a comfortable process to get on bus.
右の A、B ですね。
So I traveled on the Willard Reborn overnight bus from Osaka to Tokyo. It costs 11,500 yen per person. It is pricey for a night bus, but it's super clean and it's still cheaper than a Shinkansen train ticket. You get your own pod with all the luxe features: folding table, electric outlet, reading light, and amenities like blanket and eye mask. And best of all, it has an almost flat reclining seat. Almost.
So I'm fully reclined all the way down and I'm pretty straight, so it's quite comfortable on this bus. So for those of you that are looking for a decent night's sleep, then this might not be that bad of a solution. I mean, you have the shaking of the bus, but aside from that, you can lay straight, which you can't get in a lot of other buses. So all I have to do is just take a nap and see how the morning goes.
That was probably the most comfortable bus ride I've ever had. But being me, I'm still a bit tired. I didn't get the best sleep in the world. And also, you don't need to go overnight. You can actually travel on a bus during the day. There's different types of buses you can get, and depending on your price range, you can get different classes. So for me, I think overnight buses are great if you really want to save that money. But I think at my age, I prefer to just travel a little bit nicer and just like sleep at a real hotel. But it really depends on you. If you're trying to save money on hotels and you want to like get from city to city, then overnight buses are a really good way to do it. Now let's talk about car rentals. So the first thing I should mention, especially because a lot of people ask me about car rentals, if you're going to a big city like Tokyo, then you definitely don't need to rent a car. Train access is pretty much everywhere, and you can get to wherever you need to go via train and then walking to that location. So I think cars make the most sense if you're traveling outside of Tokyo and you want to explore some places that trains and buses can't normally get to. Also, some really nice ryokans are really difficult to get to, so taking a car makes a lot of sense. Another way cars make sense is if you're with a large family or a large group, then car transit allows the entire group to stay together and go to these remote spots. But before you drive, you need to make sure that you meet the requirements to be able to drive in Japan. So generally, you either need a Japanese driver's license or you need
Тяжело, конечно.
to get an international driver's license. There are a few countries where you can get your license translated, but that's only a few countries. So more than likely you're going to need to get an international driver's license. Also, when you're in a major city like Tokyo, parking is limited. So even if you get a car and you rent it for more than one day, you're gonna have to park it somewhere. And if you park, it's quite expensive. Sometimes it'll get to like 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 yen per day. So you have to be.
Вы хотите выучить английский, вот 3 главные заблуждения, которые не дают вам заговорить на нем. Первое. Вы должны знать много слов. Второе. Вы думаете, что слишком поздно.
To be really careful of the cost.
And you might want to remember this kanji. It's pronounced aki, meaning there's an opening.
So renting a car in general could cost between 5,000 to 10,000 yen on average. It really depends on the car rental place that you go to. A lot of them these days actually are translated into English. I'll leave some of the links in the description so you guys can check that out. So let me briefly show you what it's like to rent a car.
Renting a car in Japan is just as easy as any other country. It's easiest to book online. Then go to the rent-a-car shop, choose your insurance, and sign the documents, and you're ready to go. I use Toyota Rent-A-Car a bit since it's close to my house, and the prices are competitive. Also, most of the shops in Tokyo have English support and manuals, even English navigation systems. If you're not used to driving on the left-hand side of the street, I recommend getting a new driver magnet to warn other drivers that you're new to the road. You can usually ask the car rental shop for it, or buy it at the 100-yen shop. Streets in Tokyo are smaller, especially compared to, say, the streets in the US. And there are many one-way streets, so be ultra cautious with signs when you drive. Also, in the US, you have free rights on red lights, but in Japan, free lefts at red lights are usually prohibited.
Since we just talked about car rentals, let's now talk about taxis. So the first thing I should mention is that if you're coming to Tokyo or any of the large cities, to be honest with you, not a lot of people use ride-hailing services like Uber. The reason being is that there's just so many taxis on the road that it's really easy to hail down a taxi without even calling them. In fact, if you were trying to hail a taxi using one of the apps, what you'll find is that a taxi will come quicker than if you were trying to call one on an app. So that's why a lot of people don't use it. In fact, Uber in Japan is a little bit different than other countries. Uber is not run by private drivers. It's actually run by a company, so they don't actually save you any money compared to the regular taxis. In fact, a lot of the times they're more expensive than regular taxis, so I personally never use them. So if you are in a larger city in Japan, don't worry about downloading any apps. You can just hail a taxi on the street, no problems. Now, if you're outside of the city, then taxis may vary, but the best thing to do if you're at the train station, then they should have a taxi stop, and that's where you should get picked up. Now, if you're at the hotel, you can actually ask your hotel to call a taxi. That's basically the easiest way to get a taxi as opposed to using a ride-sharing app. And especially if you're outside of the country, a lot of them don't use apps.
My personal favorite taxis are the new models, which are specifically designed for the 2020 Olympics. It's a lot more spacious, has wheelchair access, comes with seat warmers, and charging ports. Prices will generally be fixed for an area, so you don't need to worry about being overcharged. But know that taxis are expensive, so most people take the train. For example, it will easily cost you $20 to $30 traveling only several stations away. To pay, it's still common to use cash. To you $20 to $30 traveling only several stations away. To pay, it's still common to use cash, but you can also use IC cards and credit cards these days. Oh, and there's no tipping, so taxis are vacant when you see this red kanji, read as kusha. And when the taxi isn't taking fares, you'll see the kanji kaiso. And one more thing to note about Japanese taxis. The rear passenger door opens automatically, controlled by the taxi driver, so no need to open taxis. When the taxi isn't taking fares, you'll see the kanji kaiso. And one more thing to note about Japanese taxis. The rear passenger door opens automatically, controlled by the taxi driver, so no need to open or close. Personally though, I've got so used to it that sometimes when I'm in another country, I stand there like an idiot waiting for the door to open. Anyway, enjoy the service while you're in Japan.
So one thing that you should be careful of if you're trying to hail a taxi in Ginza on the weekdays between 10 and 1, they actually won't stop if you're on the side of the street trying to hail them down. You're going to need to find a taxi stop in Ginza in order for them to come and pick you up. Strange, I think that's the only place in Japan that's like that. So let's talk about bike rentals. It's quite useful if you want to explore a particular part of the city or like neighboring stations and you don't want to take the train to get to each spot, or if you don't want to walk because sometimes the train stations can be pretty far apart and bike rentals are just a great way to get around. Now there's various services and companies that offer bike rentals or bike sharing, but one of the companies I found quite useful is Docomo. The reason being is that they're based in a lot
of cities, including Tokyo. Not only are they in Tokyo, but they're in Hokkaido, Miyagi, Kanagawa, Osaka, Nara, and Hiroshima. You can rent them on an hourly basis, but what's actually nice is that they have a one-day pass. In Tokyo, it's about 1,650 yen to rent a bike. And it's great if you're here with a partner or maybe like a group, you guys can just all rent a bike. You can do a quick search for the location and find one near you. You apply on the internet, it takes about 5 minutes to apply, and it's pretty easy. All you have to do is enter the password and then unlock the bike with one touch. And finally, after riding the bike, you don't need to return the bike out where you rented it, but you can just drop it off at any other station, which is like pretty easy. Another thing I like about the bikes is that they're pedal assist, so if you're going up hills or you just want that extra push, you don't need to like use all your effort to bike around. So if this particular bike service is not available in the city that you're going to be in, it's quite easy to find another bike rental service. All you need to do is search on Google, bike rental in the city, and something should come up, especially in the major cities. But one thing to be careful of is where you park your bike. You just need to look for the signs that says no parking. A lot of them are in Japanese, so the no parking usually looks like this. So don't park there because you have a chance of your bike getting impounded. So now let me talk quickly about lockers. So lockers are available in most train stations and airports, but traveling around, I find that there's usually like 3 different sizes. Usually you can pay by cash, but a lot of the newer ones, it's really cool because you can use your IC card to pay, and then when you come back, you can just swipe your IC card again, and it'll open up the locker for you. So when you're at airports or train stations, these are kind of the standard size lockers. You can see that my baggage here doesn't actually fit in the smaller sizes. Like this is actually the size. And so this is the mid-tier, and still I don't think my luggage will fit in here. It's a little bit too small. And this is the largest size locker. It should fit a large suitcase like this one. Just know that during busy times like special events, lockers get taken quickly, so be prepared. Personally, I'm a huge fan of lockers, especially when I have luggage. I want to explore the station. I don't want to carry a lot of stuff, so I use lockers quite a bit. It just makes it super easy. Lockers can be found throughout the city as well. Alright, that concludes the video. If you liked it, help me out and hit that like button. If you want to help support the channel, like always, check out the Japan merch. If you want to see what I'm doing on the daily, check out my Instagram account. If you want to connect with people that love Japan or you have questions about your Japan travels, check out my Discord channel. And thanks again, the luggage-free travel service. Links are always in the description. Use the discount code PAOLO in order to get 20% off. If you guys want to see more Japan guides or anything I'm doing in Japan, hit that subscribe button and the bell button, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Happy New Year, everyone! We are back at Maiko's hometown in Aichi. We actually did a video here last year, but yeah, we're completely back. We're in her living room, and today I'm bringing you guys something super special. We're getting a $1,000 bento box, which is kind of more than I've ever spent on any food in my entire life. We wanted to kind of start this new year off right. I guess spending a lot of money. Maybe that's probably not the best way to start the New Year's, but I just wanted to show you guys what's inside. Alright, let's do this and open this Osechi bento box. Yeah! Wow, look at that. This is actually pretty heavy. It is properly wrapped in cloth. It wouldn't be complete if I don't have Maiko to join with me, so yeah, let's get Maiko involved. Maiko, can you come here? We can open this together and ring in the new year.
Happy New Year's, guys!
Oh, one thing before we start. If you guys don't already know this, we're starting a second channel, and it's called Tokyo Zebra. That channel is coming soon. We'll be releasing a video soon. I'll leave a link in the description if you guys want to subscribe to that. And we've actually got a special announcement for you guys, which I'm quite excited about, so definitely subscribe. So why did we do $1,000 bento Osechi again?
Because I wanted to see it. Okay, so like, I'm born and raised in Japan, and I never gotten this like huge Osechi. Like, my family don't invite that many like people in the house for New Year's because we're not the main house in the family tree. So I'm so excited to open this thing.
Yeah, let's open this up. Let's do it.
Nice box.
It's a nice, yeah, this is nice. Look, it's actually 3 levels. So these boxes, they're actually called bento box. This whole thing is called osechi because it's for the new year. But each box is actually called jubako. So ju itself means like to pile on top of each other. Oh, look at that! I actually thought it was a bamboo stick. It's weird because it's actually. Oh, it is bamboo.
It's funny, like you only pay me one set.
Yeah.
This box is for 5 to 6 people.
Interesting. Maybe this is like the serving chopsticks.
Oh.
So basically, I think this is probably just for serving. Pretty cool. And on top it has this fern. It's called shida.
I see this on like little shrine, like when you put like orange to give to the god.
Yeah.
Like giving.
Well, thanks to the gods.
Let's open it!
Let's open it. Sorry, it's taking forever to open it. Dun, 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 dun. Wow. Look at that. The first layer, first level. Wow, the first thing I noticed is the shrimp in there. That's probably one of the more expensive pizzas, I think, right? What do you mean? The
I think
shrimp's-
this is expensive. Karasumi takayo. So that's expensive.
It's actually supposed to be fish eggs from a mullet fish. Not really sure. Like the only mullets I really know are the people that wear it. A mullet? You don't know what mullets are?
Bullets.
No, the mullets are like when you grow hair in the back of your head.
Oh, yeah.
Let's try it.
You don't eat it with one bite. It's really strong taste usually, right?
Not really salty.
No. You usually put it in like a pasta and like make it sauce because it's really strong taste. Or like when you drink sake, you can take a little bit of bite.
So before we get into like the details of like what's in this video, I'm going to share with you my tips and hacks to get around Japan. In this video, I'm going to show you some unique spots in and around the Tokyo Kanto area. So we're gonna switch it up a bit in this one, and I'm taking you on a journey all throughout Tokyo, the Kanto region like Kanagawa, Saitama, Chiba, plus even a visit to Fukushima. Thanks to the Kanto Transportation Bureau for helping me out on this one.
Человек ложится в монитор тоже. Как говорит, вы слышите сегодня? Хорошо, он человек ложится. Хороший человек как
Definitely gonna hit up some local favorites, and then we're gonna go off the tracks to some spots that many travelers don't know about. That said, buckle up, strap in, because this is gonna be a bullet train-like adventure through the Kanto region, and it's only fitting that we start in Tokyo at my home station, Shibuya. Shibuya Scramble Square. So if you're looking for a spectacular view in Tokyo, then you don't need to go further than Shibuya Scramble Square. It's actually one of the newest buildings in Tokyo, and it has an amazing view. Oh, I'm so excited for this. Let me show you right now. Let's go! Alright, so I got my ticket. Let's go to the top. Shibuya Sky is perched on the 47th floor of this newly built Shibuya Scramble Square building, where you can enjoy at 230 meters up.
Не надо. Я не хочу петь, у меня нет таких планов, к сожалению.
Up a 360-degree panoramic view of all of Tokyo. Wow, what an amazing view. We're not even at the top right now, and it's just so crystal clear from up here. You can actually walk around this entire place. It has these huge glass window panes, and you can see the entire city. And it's quite amazing because I live in Shibuya, and I know all the little different parts that I go to, because it's nice to see everything from a bird's eye view. It's just such an amazing experience. And if you want to get your drinky drink on, then you can come here and order drinks, and you bring your drinky drink and sit here. There's seats all along here, and you can check out the view just right in front of you. Alright, we're on top of the world. Look at this, all of Tokyo behind me. This is such an awesome view. Check it out. Oh, like my heart is kind of beating a little bit fast on how high we are right now. My breath has been taken. Oh, and for those of you looking to catch a night view, Shibuya Sky is open till 11 p.m. Team Lab borderless. Team Lab is the world's first digital art.
Есть определенный, да, я согласен. Ну, может это, да. Я вообще, да. Да. Ну вот это есть. Почему я должен, по-вашему, развиваться так, как вам кажется, что я должен там что-то вам делать? Развиваться, сколько годов должен, я понял. Нет, почему? То есть в обществе много потребностей, в конце концов. Да. И это ваша проблема, то есть я не должен вас свалить, да. Понимаете? Ну, значит, и не надо никому, да, не получается, да? Вот это другое, что ты как бы живешь зря, изначально, да. Это тоже, ничего страшного, это момент.
Museum, and it's located at Pallet Town in Odaiba.
So we're back with a fan favorite. We've been here before, but I had to show you guys again. One of the things you'll find about Team Lab Borderless One of the things you'll find about Team Lab Borderless is that they have a whole bunch of hidden rooms. So you have to go and wander around, and each room is quite different, as you can see from this room. The thing is, you might not actually find some of the rooms, so you have to go and explore and wander around. And that's kind of the beauty of this place.
2121 design site. Kind of looks like a museum, but it's actually not. You can see a lot of different designs that they've come up with. So let me show you around this place, because it's pretty cool. Located at Midtown in Roppongi, this site was created by a group of collaborators, including Issei Miyake, as a hub to promote Japanese design culture. Named 2121 with the intention that it would be a venue which offers vision beyond 2020 to see what's ahead. Wow, it's so interesting to see all these different designs in the displays, all made by Japanese designers, and they have a description for all of them so you can see how they made every single one of these pieces. And check out these little mini chairs. Traveling just south of Tokyo, we're now hitting up Kanagawa Prefecture. And first things first, we're checking out the beachside area of Enoshima, a small island off the Shonan coast about 4 kilometers in circumference, and my summer go-to spot for many years. Benzaiten Nakamise Dori. If you're coming to Enoshima, then you're definitely going to have to check out Enoshima Shrine and this shopping area right behind me. This street is filled with souvenir shops and restaurants, but like my teacher always said, you do you. Actually, she never said that, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Street food. So this particular Manju stop has more than 200 years of history perfecting their craft, and what better way to start our ascent than to get some traditional street food. Alright, now that I'm all carved up, time to make that climb up to the shrine. Just a small walk away from the shrine area, you can walk around the island enjoying the ocean breeze and even watch the sailboats. But if you come this far, I definitely recommend this next Enoshima hitter, as the area is known for its shirasu delicacy, aka whitebait fish. It feels good to get out of that wind. So this place is one of the best shirasu places in all of Enoshima. Right now it's kind of under construction, so you can actually see the facade. But you guys can't miss it. It's one of the best places to come out here. So I got the shirasu bowl with 6 different types of fish. This bowl comes with a healthy serving of cooked shirasu, raw shirasu, salmon, salmon roe, sakura shrimp, and my favorite, negi todo. So shirasu is usually served cooked, but during a limited time in the winter, they serve fresh raw shirasu. It also comes with a raw egg, but I changed it to a half-cooked egg called onsen tamago. Oh, get it all dipped in there. Oh, that's so good. That is so good. The egg make is super creamy with like the buttery negitoro on top of the nicely cooked rice. I think I even got like some pieces of salmon roe in there, some ikura. Oh, I just love how like the saltiness just pops. So this one is the boiled shirasu. You can see that it's white because it's been boiled already right there. For being such a little fish, you can taste all of the flavor in there. When it's compared to the raw shirasu, you can see just a little fish right there. It has a, how do you say, a more fluid taste. Cup Noodles Museum. So if you're in Yokohama, you're definitely going to have to check out the Cup Noodles Museum. Let's go inside. Look at all this ramen behind me, all the way from 1958 when it was first created till now. Cup Noodles Museum is not just a museum for old ramen noodles, but a place where you can experience making your very own customized cup noodles. And today, I'm feeling carnivorous. Alright, now it's time to fill up the ramen cup. Oh, and I strongly recommend getting a ticket in advance since it often sells out, especially on weekends. So basically you can choose all the different ingredients,
but this time I chose all meat. It's pretty awesome. I never had one with all meat.
Alright, so I like to keep my goals ahead of me, but maybe by the time you watch this, we've already reached it. Either way, thank you again for subscribing and being a part of this channel.
Alright, check it out. I got my finished cup of noodles. It's a meat lover's paradise. All meat, all ingredients, all the time. Now I got my meal. Let me take you to the next spot.
Noge.
We're in Yokohama's Noge Street right now, and this place is known to have a bunch of little bars that you can come to at night. And in fact, it's a great bar hopping location if you're really looking for it. So let me show you around.
So yes, Yokohama is known for its glitzy new entertainment area, like Minato Mirai, but on the other side of Sakuragicho Station, there's a hidden drinking alley that many locals and salarymen alike love to frequent.
Alright, so there's actually a lot of bars in this area, as you guys can see walking through. But this one is actually pretty cool because it has kind of that like old school nostalgic vibe. There's just a lot of different like little kind of antiques and just like memorabilia from Japan that you can sit and enjoy like a nice cold beer like this.
Now let's head up north to Saitama.
So we made it to Saitama. I wanted to show you some cool spots in this area as well.
And just because I can, I'm gonna ride a bike to the next spot. Told you we were going off the tracks on this one.
Wow, this is amazing. It's pretty nice that they have these bike rental places all over Saitama. It makes it super easy to just get around.
Omiya Hikawa Shrine. So this is the main Hikawa shrine out of 280 Hikawa shrines spread across the Kanto region, and it has a 2,400-year history. In fact, the shrine is so special that the surrounding area was named after it, Omiya, which means great shrine. And with a backdrop of giant 500-year-old trees, it's a perfect setting for those of you who love shrines. Kawagoe Kamado Shrine.
So I wanted to quickly show you guys a Kamado shrine. And Kamado shrines are marked by this crow behind me. Crow is unique, as you can see that it has 3 legs, and the legs actually represent the sky, earth, and the people. And the story behind the crow is that it actually approached the emperor and told the emperor to come and create this land you know as Japan. And you can find Kamado shrines all throughout Japan.
Now if you're into unique shrines, then this one is worth considering. At the main entrance, it has this Ashin Bumi Kenko Road, which literally translates to foot pressure health road. It's a pretty rare feature for shrines. I mean, a lot of people go to shrines to pray for help, while at this one, you can get actual physical therapy right on the spot. It's located in Kawagoe, also known as Koedo, so stop by if you're around the area. Bonsai Art Museum.
So this bonsai museum has 120 bonsai trees, and they have 70 on display. The oldest one being 1,000 years old. It's pretty amazing. And one thing when you're coming here, you actually need to look at the bonsai, not from the front, but if you look all the way from the bottom, you can see how majestic it is because it's supposed to be designed as a miniature of the real thing.
Think only tree. Okay, confession. Before coming to Japan, everything I knew about bonsai trees I learned from Mr. Miyagi. So making my way to this bonsai museum in Omiya and getting to see and learn firsthand about bonsai was quite an enriching experience. Oh, and if you're not on bike, it's still only a 5-minute walk away from the Todo train station on the Utsunomiya line. And now, we're going up even further north to Fukushima. And our first stop is Aizu Wakamatsu.
In this spot, we're gonna go Bushido style, the way of the samurai. Let's do this!
Aizu Hanko Nishinkan. So this was a real deal samurai school back in the day where the students would learn how to read, write, fight, and survive. During the Edo period, Nishinkan was the largest and most prestigious school out of 300 schools in Japan. And now, the school has been open to let people experience how it was to study back in the day. And they even have archery class.
Alright, you can even try the bow and arrows here. Let's do this.
Silence, everyone. This is where form meets function. Yatta! And for those of you who want to get your brush wet, you can create your own traditional akabeko, Fukushima's most famous craft and symbol of the Aizu region.
This is so cool. I get to paint my own akabeko. Aka means red and beko means cow. So these cows are known to be strong and healthy creatures that endure a lot of pain and hardships. And so what basically you do is you paint it and it's supposed to receive all of like the negative energy and all like the bad things in your life. Alright, I finished my akabeko. Hopefully you'll receive all the mean comments.
Oh,
Je suis en ce moment à Phuket, en Thaïlande, et j'ai une révélation pour les investisseurs. Regarde ça. Tous les commerces là derrière moi, tout ça c'est fermé. Et j'étais dans plusieurs endroits de la ville, 90% des commerces sur le tourisme sont fermés. C'est une véritable catastrophe. Mais c'est une très belle opportunité pour certains. Et c'est pas une opportunité dont je parlais d'investir ici. Non, parce qu'en fait, c'est dans la tête que ça se passe et il y a quelque chose de très important. C'est ça la révélation. C'est qu'on dit toujours dans les investissements, il faut savoir être agressif quand tout le monde est défensif et être défensif quand tout le monde est agressif. C'est-à-dire que tout ce que tu as vu derrière moi, devant moi maintenant, qui est fermé, qui est à vendre, et bien il va y avoir quelqu'un pour acheter. Et c'est pour ça que dans les investissements, il y a toujours un acheteur et un vendeur. Et il vaut mieux toujours faire partie du petit groupe. C'est-à-dire que quand tout le monde se dit c'est fini, c'est plus la peine, c'était une arnaque, parce que par exemple les monnaies virtuelles, on disait ça. Les monnaies du futur, tu vois, on disait ça. On dit c'est une arnaque. Depuis ça a bien remonté, ça continue de monter. Pourquoi? Parce que les pouvoirs centralisés, on voit très bien qu'on ne peut pas faire confiance, surtout sur les politiques monétaires, hein, puisqu'il y a eu la crise 2008, enfin bref, on a eu je ne sais combien, et on voit que ça continue de monter derrière, parce qu'il y a un intérêt. Et peut-être que justement tu voudrais investir dedans, mais tu ne sais pas exactement dans quoi investir, par où commencer, ou peut-être que tu as commencé et tu voudrais juste améliorer ta stratégie. Alors sache que j'ai préparé un atelier qui est totalement gratuit, où je t'explique ma méthode, comment j'investis, en 5 minutes par mois.
Uchijuku.
So right now we're in Ochijuku, and if you look around, these houses have been around since the Edo period. And what sets them apart is if you look at the roofs, all of the roofs are made out of thatch.
So during the Edo period, Ochijuku was a city situated on the important route connecting Aizu and Nikko. Many travelers would come through this location to rest mid-journey. Despite being in the mountains, the city flourished. These days, you can simply stroll in the area to enjoy the view or experience the traditional thatch shops for souvenirs and such.
Wow, this place is amazing. You really feel like you've transported back into time. The roofs are made out of thatch.
Ochijuku.
So right now we're in Ochijuku, and if you look around, these houses. Houses have been around since the Edo period, and what sets them apart is if you look at the roofs, all of the roofs are made out of thatch.
So during the Edo period, Ochijuku was a city situated on the important route connecting Aizu and Nikko. Many travelers would come through this location to rest mid-journey. Despite being in the mountains, the city flourished through this location to rest mid-journey. Despite being the mountains, the city flourished. These days, you can simply stroll in the area to enjoy the view or experience the traditional thatch shops for souvenirs and such.
Wow, this place is amazing. You really feel like you've transported back into time.
But today, I've got that traveler's hunger. And fortunately for me, Ochijuku specializes in a unique negi soba where you're supposed to eat the soba with a fresh, giant green, long onion. Yeah, boy!
Yes, it's so nice. They have a kotatsu here. It's a heated table. Meaning that underneath the table it's heated and they have this little blanket that just covers your legs. Alright, the food has come. You can see the takato soba comes with a negi. Look at that. Look how big that is. And basically you can use it to mix it all around. And then on top of it you have some daikon, oroshi. And on top of that you have some bonito flakes. And the way you're supposed to actually eat this is you're supposed to take some of the soba noodles and you're supposed to eat it with the onion. From that, dip it in. That negi adds so much of flavor to the soba. The negi almost kind of has like that wasabi kick to it, like it releases all of your sinus because it's just.
Вещей не хватает, вот что я понял. Наверное.
It's so fresh. The soba itself is actually in the nice little dashi. You can see the noodles perfectly like soaked in the soup. As you get higher and higher up the negi, you can like feel the spiciness.
Alright, now we're heading east of Tokyo to Chiba, and at our first stop, I'm getting one with nature. And a bit of rain.
So although it's raining right now, I definitely have to show you this spot. Right now we're at Mount Nokogiri. Let me show you around.
Its sky is 320 meters high and is known for having the largest Buddha in Japan. But in fact, there's so much more to explore in this mountain.
Wow, that was kind of a little bit of a climb, but the view here is just amazing.
So this is Hyaku Shaku Kanon, the deity of great mercy and love. Shaku is an old measurement in Japan. Hyaku means 100, and so one shaku being 30 centimeters makes the carving about 30 meters tall.
So alright, so we made it to the top. If you look down, it's super scary. And I'm actually scared of heights, so I don't really want to look down. But for you guys, let's do it. Let's go.
Jigoku no Zoki. Literally translated, it means peering into hell. This viewpoint is about 100 meters high and super scary. But on a cloudy day like today, you kind of feel like you're floating above the clouds. When it's sunny though, you can get a great view of Tokyo Bay, Boso Peninsula, and even Fuji Mountain. And this is the largest Buddha in Japan, Yakushi Yuriko Nyorai. It towers at 31.05 meters and it took 3 years to create. The second largest Buddha in Japan is more than 10 meters shorter at about 18 meters tall in Nara. And so here we are, our last stop of the journey, Michi no Eki, Hota Shogako.
So this place is called the Michi no Eki, which is kind of like a place for cars to stop, like a rest area. And so what's interesting about this place is that it's an elementary school that's been converted into a rest stop. If you look just behind me, you can tell that it's an elementary school here in Japan.
Located in Kyonan-machi, Chiba, Hota Shogako was an elementary school closed in 2014 and was renovated into a car rest stop. So I visited a few elementary schools in my days in Japan for various events.
This area right here really feels like you're in an elementary.
On the important route connecting Aizu and Nikko, many travelers would come through this location to rest mid-journey. Despite being in the mountains, the city flourished. These days, you can simply stroll in the area to enjoy the view or experience the traditional thatched shops for souvenirs and such.
Wow, this place is amazing. You really feel like you're transported back into time.
But today, I've got that traveler's hunger. And fortunately for me, Ochijuku specializes in a unique negi soba where you're supposed to eat the soba with a fresh, giant green, long onion. Yeah, boy!
Yes, it's so nice. They have a kotatsu here. It's a heated table. Meaning that underneath the table it's heated and they have this little blanket that just covers your legs. Alright, the food has come. You can see the takato soba comes with a negi. Look at that. Look how big that is. And basically you can use it to mix it all around. And then on top of it you have some daikon, oroshi, and on top of that you have some bonito flakes. And the way you're supposed to actually eat this is you're supposed to take some of the soba noodles and you're supposed to eat it with the onion. From that, dip it in. That negi adds so much flavor to the soba. The negi almost kind of has like that wasabi kick to it, like it releases all of your sinus because it's just so fresh. The soba itself is actually in a nice notashi. You can see the noodles perfectly like soaked in the soup. As you get higher and higher up the negi, you can like feel the spiciness.
Alright, now we're heading east of Tokyo to Chiba, and at our first stop, I'm getting one with nature. And a bit of rain. So although it's raining right now, I definitely had to show you this spot. Right now we're at Mount Nokogiri. Let me show you around. Its sky is 320 meters high and is known for having the largest Buddha in Japan. But in fact, there's so much more to explore in this mountain. Wow, that was kind of a little bit of a climb, but the view here is just amazing. So this is Hyaku Shaku Kanon, the deity of great mercy and love. Shaku is an old measurement in Japan. Hyaku means 100, and so one shaku being 30 centimeters makes the carving about 30 meters tall. So alright, so we made it to the top. If you look down, it's super scary. And I'm actually scared of heights, so I don't really want to look down. But for you guys, let's do it. Let's go. Jigoku no Zoki. Literally translated, it means peering into hell. This viewpoint is about 100 meters high and super scary. But on a cloudy day like today, you kind of feel like you're floating above the clouds. When it's sunny though, you can get a great view of Tokyo Bay, Boso Peninsula, and even Fuji Mountain. And this is the largest Buddha in Japan, Yato Peninsula, and even Fuji Mountain. And this is the largest Buddha in Japan, Yakushi Ryuko Nyorai. It towers at 31.05 meters and it took 3 years to create. The second largest Buddha in Japan is more than 10 meters shorter at about 18 meters tall in Nara. And so here we are, our last stop of the journey, Michi no Eki, Hota Shogako. So this place is called the Michi no Eki, which is kind of like a place for cars to stop, like a rest area. And so what's interesting about this place is that it's an elementary school that's been converted into a rest stop. If you look just behind me, you can tell that it's an elementary school here in Japan. Located in Kyonan Machi, Chiba, Hota Shogako was an elementary school closed in 2014 and was renovated into a car rest stop. So I visited a few elementary schools in my days in Japan for various events. This area right here, it really feels like you're in an elementary school. Wow, this is exactly what an elementary school sink would look like. And what's interesting about this place is that on the second floor, you can actually sleep here. They actually have hotel rooms that look like elementary school classrooms. On the first floor, they have 5 restaurants offering different types of food. And since it's a rest stop, I definitely can't pass up on some food. So hungry, time to get some pizza. But check this out, they have a real stone oven just right behind me. It's crazy to think that this used to be a classroom and now it's a pizza restaurant. Look at that, I got my pizza. I actually got the salami X, meaning that it's like super sized. Look just how delicious that looks. It has some tomatoes, some salami, some olives, it looks like some basil. And it wouldn't be right if I didn't throw some chili oil on there. Oh, get it all doused in there. Woo! And I've got my beer. Who would have thought I'd be at an elementary school drinking a beer and having some pizza? Oh, the mozzarella goes so well with that salami. You have the olives and you have the freshly cut tomatoes. This is the perfect meal. And in fact, like many rest stops, this place has a ton of souvenirs to bring back home. Even the gymnasium has been converted into a market where you can buy local vegetables and goods. Look, they even have rice here. Looks like the guy's mouth is open with rice. Such a sake as well. Alright, so that concludes my tour of Tokyo and the Kanto area. If you guys like this video, help me out and hit that like button. If you want to see what I'm doing on the daily, check out my Instagram account. If you want to help support the channel, then definitely check out the Tokyo merch. And if you have any questions about Japan or your Japan travels, check out the Discord community. Links are always in the description. And finally, if you want to see more guides about Japan or Tokyo or anything like that, hit that subscribe.
« 6 janvier 2021. Le Capitole, symbole de la démocratie américaine, est attaqué.
And breaking news tonight, the deadly siege on Congress as an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol. We've seen shocking images of chaos, rioters rushing past barricades and police up the Capitol steps.
Mais derrière ce chaos et cette colère, l'invasion du Capitole a-t-elle pu être planifiée ? Le Monde a examiné des dizaines de vidéos de l'événement, mais aussi les réseaux sociaux fréquentés par l'extrême droite américaine. Il montre le rôle central joué par certains groupes paramilitaires dans l'irruption au sein du Capitole et trahissent l'existence d'un plan pour y parvenir. Ils exposent la proximité entre ces milices et certaines personnalités proches de l'ancien président Donald Trump. Deux mois plus tôt, le 4 novembre 2020.
This is a fraud on the American public. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
Malgré sa défaite à l'élection présidentielle américaine, Donald Trump refuse de s'avouer vaincu. Partout dans le pays, ses partisans organisent des manifestations contre ce qu'ils considèrent comme de la fraude électorale. Parmi eux, des militants armés et équipés de tenues paramilitaires. Parmi eux, des militants armés considèrent comme de la fraude électorale. Parmi eux, des militants armés et équipés de tenues paramilitaires. Ils sont notamment affiliés à deux groupes, les Proud Boys et les Housekeepers.
We have men already stationed outside DC as a nuclear option, and in case they attempt to remove the president illegally, we will step in and stop it.
19 décembre. Trump appelle à une grande manifestation à Washington le jour où les résultats de l'élection doivent être certifiés par le Sénat. Sur ce forum, les résultats de l'élection doivent être certifiés par le Sénat. Sur ce forum pro-Trump, qui compte plusieurs millions de vues par mois, les partisans du président s'organisent. Cette carte est notamment partagée à de nombreuses reprises dans des messages supprimés depuis. Les positions des tunnels d'accès souterrains du Capitole, ainsi qu'un périmètre d'encerclement du complexe, y sont notamment indiqués. Certains parlent d'entrer à l'intérieur du bâtiment.
Une manifestation ne suffira pas à faire changer le congrès d'avis.
Pas si nous restons à l'extérieur. En revanche...
Quelques jours avant le 6 janvier, les Proud Boys et les Housekeepers annoncent qu'ils prendront part à l'événement.
Les Proud Boys seront là en nombre record le 6 janvier.
The piano is an expressive musical instrument. The keys of the piano are touch-sensitive. The keys of the piano are touch-sensitive. Pressed softly, they produce a quiet sound. Pressed forcefully, they produce a loud sound. The piano action is the core working part of the piano. The action transmits the energy of the keystrokes to the hammers, which strike the strings and produce the musical sounds. In home service, 4 kinds of vertical pianos are commonly encountered. Old uprights or upright grand pianos, studio vertical pianos, console pianos, and spinning pianos. These instruments all use the basic vertical piano action, modified as needed to fit the different case sizes. These are the basic moving parts of the vertical action system. The key, which is pressed by the player. The hammer, which makes the sound by striking the string. The damper, which quiets the sound by pressing on the string. The whip, which uses the key movement to move the hammer and damper. These parts are mounted on rails, long rods or sticks which run across the piano, holding in place 88 individual sets of parts to play the 88 notes of the piano. When these parts work together properly, they use the performer's energy to move the hammer and damper. They also quickly reset the action and play the next note. The standard studio piano action provides the best model for understanding the vertical action. We'll use this model to show how the parts of the action work together. The action is at rest. The front of the key is up, ready to be pressed by the player. The hammer is resting on the hammer rest rail. The whip-in rests on top of the capstan. The damper is pressing against the string. Let's look closely at these parts and show their basic functions. The key is a simple lever. The center rail or balance rail provides a fulcrum or pivot point for the key. The key is held in place by a balance pin on the balance rail and a front pin on the front rail. These key pins fit in slots or mortises in the keys. Inside the mortises are cloth bushings, which slide quietly along the key pins. The front of the key is somewhat elevated at rest on the key pins. These are cloth bushings, which slide quietly along the key pins. The front of the key is somewhat elevated at rest, leaving room to be pressed by the player. The back of the key holds an adjustable brass, wood, or plastic piece called the capstan. The capstan communicates the motion of the key to the whip-in. The whip-in sits on the capstan. It is hinged to the rail by a flange, which allows controlled, easy movement in alignment with other parts. The whip-in heel or foot is shaped and placed to effectively transfer the key capstan movement to the whip-in. A flange, which allows controlled, easy movement in alignment with other parts. The whip-in heel or foot is shaped and placed to effectively transfer the key capstan movement to the whip-in. Above the heel is the jack, which also pivots in a flange. The jack communicates the whip-in movement to the hammer butt, the lower part of the hammer assembly. The hammer is now moving toward the string. The jack also has a toe. At the appropriate point in action movement, the toe contacts the toe. At the appropriate point in action movement, the toe contacts the let-off button, which presses on the toe and swings the tip of the jack away from the hammer butt. This allows the hammer to freely strike and rebound from the string without jamming or blocking. The whip-in contains additional parts that are crucial to piano function. The jack spring compresses when the jack toe moves down, and it pushes the jack back under the hammer butt when the key is released and the parts reset. The spoon presses against the lower part of the damper lever as the whip-in rises, lifting the damper head from the string. All of the dampers in the piano can be lifted simultaneously by the damper pedal. When the key is fully depressed and the hammer has rebounded, the back check on the whip-in contacts the catcher on the hammer butt and holds the hammer in check, preventing it from bouncing and restriking the string. When the key is released, the whip-in drops down and the back check. contacts the catcher on the hammer butt and holds the hammer in on the whip end, contacts the catcher on the hammer butt. And holds the hammer in check, preventing it from bouncing and restriking the string. When the key is released, the whip-in drops down and the back check releases the hammer. The hammer return spring pushes the hammer away from the string, and in fast playing, the bridle tape gives a little tug. They help the hammer return to the hammer rest rail. The action parts are now back in their original locations, ready to be played again. And in fast playing, the bridle tape gives a little tug. They help the hammer return to the hammer rest rail. The action parts are now back in their original locations, ready to be played again. With proper adjustment, all these parts work together to allow articulate, rapid, and expressive playing in the vertical piano.
Understand and look and see what actually happens in a piano when you play a note. Okay, so we're going to start up here, and we've had a different video that shows you all the different parts and names and everything. So we're going to go into a little more detail of how things work today. Now what happens, obviously this you might recognize as the key. So you're going to press that down, and I'm going to just do it quickly so you can see that all the different parts that move in the action. And ideally what happens is the hammer strikes the string will vibrate, and that's what makes the sound of, so as that string is vibrating, that's what makes the sound that you hear when a piano key is played. So what happens is the key is pressed down, and as you can see is the front of the key, which this would be the front of the key over here, as that's pressed down, the back of the key is going up. Okay, and it balances on this part right here, what's called the balance rail. Okay, so as the front of the key goes down and the back of the key goes up, this piece right here, which is called the capstan, pushes up on this part right here, which is called the whip-in. Okay, and that pushes the whip-in up. Okay, and I can even push that whip-in up without moving the key, and that'll still do the same thing. So this whole lever right here, which is called the key, pushes down on the front and pushes up on the back. So that pushes the whip-in. And what happens is this piece right here, which is called the jack, you can see pushes up on this part right here, which is called the hammer butt. Okay, and it pushes the hammer butt forward, which
как и говорит ведь. Я слышался ты, третий раз уже была слышался, да. Все правильно.
makes the hammer go forward, and we'll get to these other pieces in a minute here, but what happens is the hammer goes forward, it's going to, and if I do it really slowly, you can see, hopefully in the video, that it gets almost to the string, but doesn't reach it completely. Okay, if I hit it hard, then the hammer is going to go all the way and hit the string. Okay, but if I do it really slowly, the hammer actually comes very close to the string, but then releases as it gets close. Now, the reason it releases and it doesn't go all the way to the string is because the jack, this piece right here, this is called the toe of the jack, and that hits what's called right here the regulating button. And as the toe of the jack hits the regulating button, if you watch it really slowly, you can see the toe pushes against that regulating button, which makes the top of the jack come forward. See that? Okay, and as that jack comes forward, that releases the hammer butt so that it stops moving forward from the movement of the jack. Okay,
And the reason for that is if the jack pushed the hammer all the way up so that to the point of the hammer hitting the string, then the hammer couldn't be released and the hammer would just go up against the string and it wouldn't be able to vibrate because the hammer would be pushing up against the string, which if something is holding onto the string, it's not going to be able to vibrate. So what it does is it gets it close enough so that with the power of the jack or the movement of the key, so that it can get almost to the key and then release so that the string can vibrate. So the hammer just hits it very quickly and falls back and the string can vibrate. Okay, now what happens also is when that hammer comes back, it's not allowed to fall back all the way to its resting position.
Суперзвезда, ага. Я не вижу здесь особых причин. Взять непосильным трудом, каким вот нет, а это имело в виду, нет, нет. Ну, я не знаю, великое совершенно, великое. Я вообще не понимаю этих критериев, просто вообще надо. Даже тупо денег я вообще в обществе не нужен, я вообще не здесь. Я понимаю, что если значит церковь. Мои друзья полная, значит, что самое печальное в тоске? Continue je suis content.
direct monitoring is checked, or if it's checked in the audio interface for the system, at that point you won't be able to hear it. So those are a couple things to check. To see from Chase, oh my God, the time warp thing, I needed that fixed. I needed that in uni. I just adjusted my composition to fit. Laughing out loud. Not even my mentor taught me that. So you can teach Ken a new trick, Chase.
J'ai compris que je suis mon propre sauveur. Personne d'autre ne l'est. Je suis mon propre sauveur. Mais ma plus grande réussite est de m'accorder 1000 secondes chance. Et chaque fois que j'arrive à 999, je repars à zéro.
Oui.
Je n'ai pas demandé la permission, je l'ai annoncé. À un moment donné, je devais arrêter de demander si je pouvais être formidable, être génial, me sentir bien et toujours être accepté. Je l'ai annoncé sans complaisance, sans me vanter ni rabaisser quiconque, mais en pensant que je n'ai qu'une vie et je vais la vivre à fond. Ma professeure d'anglais disait que j'étais la pire de tous ses élèves. La même année, et la dernière fois que j'ai suivi un cours d'expression orale, j'ai eu 4 sur 20. Ma professeure m'a recommandé de ne jamais m'exprimer en public. Je me suis fait virer de 5 emplois différents. Ensuite, j'ai eu une grossesse non désirée. À 8 mois de grossesse, le père de mon fils est rentré en prison. Je bénéficiais des...
This is my dad. He just got his Android phone about a year ago. One thing he's discovered is Facebook. More specifically, he's recently cracked the Facebook newsfeed algorithm. Hey Dad, what do you like on Facebook?
Those bikini girls?
Yeah? Why?
Huh?
Why?
So they will come back. Yeah, they like. It's part of the scenery. Good to the eyes.
Good for the eyes. Look, he's looking, he's swiping up. Good morning everyone. So I just finished my run, I did some drone flying, and now we're gonna go have some lunch this morning. This is our last day in La Union at my parents' place. And probably the reason why you haven't seen my parents around is because they haven't been around. They've actually been at the farm, and my dad hurt his leg. It's about 3 hours from La Union and he couldn't drive back. We're leaving today and luckily they found a driver to help them drive back to La Union to this place. So this is kind of like the only day that I'm going to get to spend with my parents. It's kind of sad, but it's, you know, at least good to see them. So today we're going to have another barbecue. We don't get to barbecue a lot in Japan, so barbecues are always awesome and welcome. I'm trying to get this freaking... Yeah, so gonna grab some lunch and then we're gonna have a little good old-fashioned barbecue later this evening. Let's enjoy the rest of the day. We were ready to go to lunch and we were gonna go to China Sea, you know, by the ocean. But it looks like Jamila started barbecuing for us for lunch, so I guess we're gonna have lunch here today, which isn't bad because I really love the barbecue here. It's so good. And Michael's coming back. What did Jeanette say? You're kind of really hungry though, right?
I am hungry, but I can't wait.
Maiko's not so good when it comes to food and waiting for it. She has a little small stomach that just needs to be fed when it gets hungry, or else she gets really, really cranky. But this is the Philippines, and you've got to be patient because everything is on Filipino time. Barbecue Master, how are you doing?